call the meeting to order this evening. And Mr. Rosick, would you like to say the prayer this evening?
Sure, Your Honor. Loving God, as we come together tonight for the city of Waterville, we pause to ask you to be with us and guide our way. May your spirit of peace surround all we say and do this evening. We ask for your strength to do what is best for the good of Waterville. Lord God, as servants of your people, we pray that you grant us a share of your wisdom. Amen.
Please rise. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Here.
Mrs. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Here.
Mayor Rose?
Here.
Mr. Rosa?
Here.
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 Thank you. Next, we have approval of minutes. Our first is our regular council meeting, June 25th, 2018, and our second approval is special council meeting of July 2nd, 2018. We need a motion and a second.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any changes, corrections, or comments on either set of minutes?
Mayor, are you approving both?
Yes.
I need to abstain on July 2nd, so
Okay.
if they wanted to have separate,
We can do that.
I'll move to approve June 25th then, in
All
that
right.
case.
Any questions on June 25th? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, our special council meeting was July 2nd, 2018. Need a motion and a second.
I'll move for that one also, Your Honor.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain?
Abstain.
I need to abstain as well.
Mrs. Bruno and Mr. Pedro. All right, next we have a proclamation, and we have done this one for a few years now. It's Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. It is all of September, so we're reading it a little bit early, but this will give everybody time to hear about it. I'll read it real quick. Whereas this year, approximately 164,690 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer in the United States alone. One man every 3.2 minutes, and roughly 29,430 will die this year from the disease. One man every 18 minutes. And whereas in Ohio, an estimated 5,810 new cases of prostate cancer will be diagnosed, an estimated 1,110 deaths will occur in 2018. And whereas men with a father, brother, or son with a history of prostate cancer are twice as likely to develop the disease, whereas prostate cancer is the most commonly diagnosed cancer in American men and the third leading cause of cancer deaths behind lung and colon cancer. Whereas 1 in 9 men is diagnosed with prostate cancer in their lifetime, whereas veterans who have been exposed to herbicides like Agent Orange are at increased risk for developing prostate cancer and are more likely to have an aggressive form of the disease, whereas education regarding prostate cancer and early detection strategies is critical to saving lives and preserving and protecting our families. Whereas all men are at risk for prostate cancer, we encourage the citizens of Waterville to recognize the importance of prostate screenings. Now, therefore, I, Lori A. Brody, as mayor of the city of Waterville, do hereby proclaim September of 2018 as Prostate Cancer Awareness Month in the city of Waterville and urge all residents to join in recognition of this significant occasion. So remember that in September. Next, we have citizens' comments, and I do have two here. First, I have Earl Phipps, and if you don't mind coming to the podium and state your name and address for the record for us. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the council, I'm Earl Phipps from 8148 Downington. Been a citizen of Waterville for 18 years, and I have a concern that's been bothering me since I've been here. I end up on lakefront property every 2 or 3 times a year. And as I see more concrete and blacktop being made or laid, I'm concerned about where are these ponds that we have 2 of, or 1 of, plus my yard. Are they being required, or are they just overlooked? Because the one development over there said they have the ditch. Ditch hasn't been big enough since I moved here, because it's always getting overflowing. So my point is that I wish somebody in this august chapter would do something that, that eliminates this issue as we go forward. And that's my 2 minutes worth, so.
Thank
Could you
Ms.
please give me your address again, sir, Earl? Your
It's
your
81
address?
Where
What
are
is
you?
your address?
8148 Downington.
He
Thank
lives in Bridgehampton Woods,
Okay.
and we do have some flooding over there. I can speak to that. In your backyard, Mr. Phipps, is it your whole backyard or closer to the ditch by your neighbor a couple down?
We don't have a ditch over there.
I mean, is it closer to, the neighbor was in recently in the township, so we'll give you some update on that, a little bit
It's-
about the
okay,
ditch.
I'm not familiar with that,
Okay,
but we are closer to the corner than
Right.
your street.
right.
And usually when we have 2 inches of rain,
It's the whole backyard,
it's about a third or more.
right,
The neighbor to my right is about a half or more. And if they build the church with a parking lot, if they ever build a church with a parking lot, it's
Right.
gonna be that much worse.
right,
And that, that settlement pond that we have, or whatever you wanna call it,
the one side,
it's not big enough for one thing.
right,
And I'm seeing these apartments and everything else going in on Prairie Boulevard, and I don't see any ponds going in.
right.
Now, maybe by the huge development back there, they have a pond, but I don't know if it's for runoff.
Right. On the Bridgehampton Street, just for council, behind our homes, there's quite a bit of flooding. And then also on the Bridgehampton and Donington side, so he's a street over, behind their homes, they have certain homes, and we just had another flood in the basement, but that was due to a sump pump. We do get a lot of water.
Yeah, well, a lot of people
Sump
are
pump
relying on
runs-
the original sump pump.
Sump
too.
pump runs 12 months a year at our house. So it is a problem, and I'll have Mr. Bagdonis address some of this because of his engineering background, but back when they built our subdivision, they didn't put as many, tell me what they're called again, Ken. They didn't put for every 4 houses where our big drainage,
Detention areas.
detention areas and yard, but they have updated that. I mean, it won't help us, we'd have to do
Won't help
something
us,
else, right?
yeah.
But they could work with us. And then as far as the ditch goes, for the newer development, we recently Jim attended a meeting about cleaning out some of those ditches further
But
down.
they've done that before,
Right.
there, and, it helps for a little while.
Further down, not in our
Oh,
area.
okay.
So I don't know if you have a little bit of info
But,
on that, but I know that will help somewhat over there.
Yeah, it's gonna be worse. And you guys are, your sump pumps running all the time. I mean, it's just, thank heavens mine's not, but, and I've got a big, catch basin out in the back of my yard. And that backs up because the ditches are full. There's no place to drain.
Right.
So, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phipps. Anybody have any questions for you? All right. Mr. Blair's aware of some of that, right, in that subdivision, but, yeah. We could probably check if it's getting worse.
That was designed as actually Lucas County.
I don't know if you should go up there if you're, yeah. Is that Lucas County, so that wasn't under the city, so. All
But
right.
the detention ponds are doing exactly what they're supposed to do, retain water for a period of time. We are currently working with Lucas County to work out a program to have the ditches cleaned, which will help alleviate
Further down,
further
yeah.
down.
Right, not in our area, but yeah.
It's gonna be work in progress.
I think it's a point well taken as that construction continues, though, to see how that all flows over there for everybody. I know some older neighborhoods, back when I was on, as a council member, had some work done, but I believe Ken will remember this, they paid to have something put in as the neighbors, to have more drains put in.
Every new subdivision today in the city is required to have stormwater detention. And there's a calculation done to determine the difference between the agricultural rate of the runoff and runoff after construction, considering the roadways, the rooftops, pavement areas. And so the additional runoff that would result from those impervious areas, that's calculated and would be retained or detained in these detention areas. So the ditches during a certain amount of rainfall should see the same amount of runoff that they did pre-development. And as we've talked a couple meetings ago,
we've looked at the ditches in that area, and there's actually problems downstream that are outside of the city. And the county is looking at that. As we've discussed, that can be set up as a cleaning program under the county, under an assessment. And once they clean it the first time, then the county is obligated to clean it in perpetuity.
Right.
But you have to go through that ditch petition process at least once.
So I know council has the information. I think it's something to think about, even though a lot of it was blocked in the township, but it can impact us for sure.
Right. Because our ditches could be fine, but if you have
Nowhere
a
to
blockage
go.
downstream, then that is a problem for us too.
Right. Yeah, do you mind coming back up just so they can hear you at home, so.
You made a comment there about the runoff is the same during agriculture or development. I question that. I don't even know where that would come from, because there's such a thing as percolation in soil. And you don't have percolation through blacktop or concrete or roofs.
Right, and that's where you come up with the difference. You have a rate of runoff for agricultural land, and that, you have a rate of runoff, let's say 15 or 20% of the water runs off, and 80% of it percolates into the ground before development. After development, that runoff coefficient is different, and a much higher percentage
Oh, I
of the
thought you
water
implied
runs
that
off.
they were the same.
No, no.
Okay,
You calculate
okay.
the difference.
All righty.
And the volume of your storage is the difference between the post-development runoff and the pre-development runoff.
Okay, that's my mistake. So.
And I guess I would ask the question, the subdivision going in now, that's actual homes, that does not have a pond, it has the ditch, correct? Does it have a detention?
No, all those subdivisions have
It will
detention.
have a pond.
And it may not be a single pond, it may be a swale in the backyard, and the swale is
So it doesn't look like
designed
one.
to be sloped and have a sufficient volume that it
To
can
hold
retain
that.
the water, and the outlet pipe is restricted so that it doesn't allow the full amount of runoff to go into the ditch all at once.
Okay. Well, we'll keep our eye on that for sure, because we've always had a problem definitely in the neighborhood where we were. But I will say we were pre-annexation was when that was designed.
I didn't put a proposal in to talk before the council, but I would like to talk before the council as well, council.
Oh, yes. I got one more and then I will call you up. Is that good?
Can I just comment real quick before we
On the
close this?
runoff? Yep.
Well, okay, so it's my understanding, so the HMO is responsible for maintaining the retention, detention ditches
The homeowners association?
within their neighborhoods, correct? That is not the
Well,
city.
that depends. It can vary from one subdivision to another.
And what does it depend on?
The deed restrictions of a particular subdivision.
When
Oh,
they set
okay.
it up.
Okay,
right.
okay.
I'm under the impression we're the only HMO there in town.
In Waterville?
Yeah.
They tried to start one in one other neighborhood, and I don't know about Mill Creek.
Waterville Meadows,
They,
yeah.
I don't know if they succeeded.
No.
Yeah. We are one of the few.
Well, but you're right, they have to be maintained.
We have one though, off of Craig Boulevard in that new addition.
You have a homeowners association in there?
$150 a year.
Okay.
Right.
Good, you're better off if you do have one.
That's good, though.
Actually, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
You're supposed to have one. You
It
should
helps,
have one.
yeah.
It does help because then you're all, communal in how you take care of your public places like that. I would like to, discuss more. I've been reading into the waterways, and the county says they're gonna assess the property owners that abut like the ditches.
Only if there's a petition.
Only if there's a petition.
Right.
But you know what, I don't know if I like that, because I think we all benefit from a healthy waterway system.
Well, everyone in the drainage area would be assessed, not just the ones adjacent to the ditch. The way the petition works is,
We petition.
if a ditch is petitioned, everyone that is tributary in the drainage area would be assessed.
Then it would go.
Well, and I don't even know, I would think the county should assume the responsibility for the waterways within the county. They should just be part of their duty.
Well, that's not how the state law is set up.
Oh, it's a
Yeah.
state law?
Yes.
It's an ORC?
Yeah, the ditch
Do you know?
petition is well tested under the state law.
Okay, I'll have to look closer at that. and we got that information.
Before the law
You
director.
passed that out about a month
Yeah.
ago or something?
Well, for the petition, if we're interested in, it was a township resident that came in, but Mr. Bagdonis looked into it, even though it was outside the city limits. So if we wanted to be a part of that, because it, as is being pointed out, it might contribute to backup in town.
The county engineer should have the appropriate maps who says who's in the district and who would be affected as a beneficiary of whatever ditch it is that drains the entire area, irrespective, city, township, Monclova. If it goes to that ditch, to that waterway, and that person benefits, they get assessed. Once the county gets the money to pay for the ditch cleaning, then as Jim mentioned, they do take over in perpetuity to keep the ditch open and running as the residents who are benefited pay to have it cleaned and work properly.
I think I'm gonna go pay the county engineer a visit then, so I can look at these maps,
Yeah.
the waterways. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions on that one, comments?
No.
All right, keep that at the top of the list too. Next I had Rob Allen. If you don't mind stating your name and address for the record.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Rob Allen. I live at 425 Anthony Wayne Trail, apartment number 103. And I came down here tonight. I got to talk to the fire chief just a few minutes ago, and I had a conversation with the police chief last week, I think it was, Chief. I was originally from Waterville. I grew up here, moved here in 1972, and lived on Overlook. Left here in 1990-something, and just recently moved back. And, you know, time and circumstances put me in the Trail Apartments, which are pretty much slums. I started trying to find some answers to see if there's something we can do with the owners and the people that operate that. And I've been getting pretty much nowhere. The police and the fire chief are the first ones that have been kind of helpful. I've called the county health department who told me that they don't get involved in things like that anymore. And I've called several other county departments who told me they don't get involved in things like that, that it's local. I need to come talk to somebody here. When I called the property management company, Seaway Management in Maumee, the guy told me if you think somebody did something wrong, call a lawyer or call the police, but whatever, and hung up on me. To give you an idea, several weeks ago, the people that live above me flushed their toilet and it overflowed, which literally rained down in my bathroom. And when the maintenance guy came in and I said, what are we going to do to remediate this? He said, nothing, it's just dry rot, it's fine. It won't matter. I've talked to several of the other residents. I've been trying to get them a little bit organized, but a lot of people there are afraid. They're afraid to speak out against the property management company. And no one can really tell who the owner is because it's Allen James Limited, a limited liability company in the state of Ohio. And you can't really find out too much about it right now. And when you ask Seaway Management, they have absolutely nothing to say about it. I've talked to residents who say they have holes in their ceiling where their ceiling leaked, and the property management company came in, cut the drywall out, fixed the leak, and left the hole. And I know when I moved in there, the carpet hadn't been replaced in 15 years from the person before me, and when I said something to them about it, they came in, they pulled the old carpet back, put down new padding, and put the old carpet back on top of the new padding.
Okay, if I can be of help, I understand.
I'm
you
really
have
hoping.
numerous complaints. These are totally civil matters, have nothing to do with your local government. You do need to hire an attorney. You need to organize your tenants. You are allowed to escrow rent for conditions that are not habitable and not what was set forth in your lease. Your individual lease is going to govern this. If you go on the Secretary of State's website, you can find out everything that's public record about an LLC, but this is not our fight, not our business, and we wish you good luck.
Well, that's exactly what I was looking for, and I thank you. That was the direction we were trying to find, and we were just, the various county agencies were just pointing all over the place.
I would suggest a young lady, I'll use that loosely as I'm no young man, Susan Muska is probably one of the best landlord-tenant attorneys in Toledo.
MUSKA?
I believe that's correct. Yep.
Appreciate that.
Not a problem.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Next, I have no other ones. You can go next. Interesting. If you don't mind, state your name and address as well for the record.
My name is Frank L. Wright Sr., President of the Rich Hamptons subdivision. I realize I only have a couple of minutes, but first thing is that on this particular address, there's a building sitting behind it that belongs to either Comcast or somebody. They're not cutting the grass. They're not clearing the property and making it presentable for the rest of the neighborhood. As you know, the subdivision takes care of the landscaping in the front and everything. 8161, behind their house, is a building that either belongs to Comcast or some Buckeye Cable, somebody.
That's Silverstone, right?
Yes,
8161.
they need to take care of the grass
Well,
in that area.
I think that is Buckeye, and actually Buckeye has an easement. That land is still owned by the people that have that house.
The people-
Buckeye does not own the real estate there.
The guy that just bought the house owns that land?
Correct. Yes, Buckeye is on an easement on that lot.
They could probably get a copy of that from the auditor.
I would like a copy of that
Easement.
because, I mean, he's calling me and well, not him. He just moved in. He wants to put a fence in. I understand all that. But the land itself and the clearing of the property around there belongs to the guy that lives in that house?
Correct. And if they just bought it, they would have gotten some title work at the time of
I'll mention it
closing.
to him.
And there should be an easement of record.
The previous owner did an easement for that building when they
Right.
put it in. That building was not always there.
I
when
understand.
Yeah,
So we're trying to find out, I'm trying to find out who cleans that grass.
So they need to get a
there.
copy if they didn't.
Okay.
It's still their property.
I'll talk
Yeah.
with them about it.
Yeah,
Next thing I
and
have is,
if I can help on that point before we get off of it. That title work will contain a page called exceptions, and it will list an easement for the phone, for the gas, for electricity. That easement will be referenced there, and all he has to do is call the title company, cause he paid for this, but most people don't read the easements that are referred to in there. He can get an entire copy of that for nothing from his title company, read it, and it will say who has to do what.
So he can take it up with the company.
I will
It's
take it up.
between him and them.
Yeah.
I will take it up because, the next question I have for you is, has the city council really given a lot of thought about the idea of water drainage for the area based upon the idea if the church goes in over there next to the fire department and the houses and retention ponds that are being built across the street from the fire department, there's gonna be a lot of water if we get a deluge of rain, 5-6 inches of rain at one time. There's gonna be some massive flooding around the area. And has the city council given us some thought about the idea of water drainage for that entire area so that the water can get out of there? Have you using a 6-inch line, thought about going to a 10-inch line? I mean, something, because it's gonna happen. Just as I'm standing here before you, it's gonna happen, and either one way or the other, some people are gonna be upset about the fact that their property is now, like Mr. Phipp's, beachfront property and what have you, because there was not enough drainage for to get rid of all the water that's coming.
Well, the same rules apply to the church site as a new subdivision. Within their development, when they do a site plan, they will have to calculate the amount of runoff, and they will have to detain that extra water on their site before it gets discharged into a ditch or storm sewer.
It does go to the planning commission too as well, and the
Right.
engineer that we hire to approve it before they can build it.
So they'll have to have swales on their property or a dry pond or a wet pond. They'll have to have some sort of facility there to accommodate that extra runoff. That is the difference between the post-development runoff and the pre-development runoff.
Okay, because people that live in that, along that stretch, going all the way back to where the park is, they've asked this question several times, and I could not give an answer to that. I realize that it's gonna be a mess eventually somewhere down the road if the water from across the street is allowed to come back across the street over to the fire department or to a drainage line over in the fire department side or wherever it may be going. There's gonna be a real problem eventually if we get a lot of rain. And if you get 9 inches of rain at one time, there will be a massive
Well,
problem.
if we get 9 inches, everybody's gonna have a problem.
But you never know, yeah.
You never know.
Could happen.
The church is gonna be required to detain their excess runoff on their site.
Okay.
This is
Well,
good, though. Well, this way we know that people have issues, so we wouldn't know otherwise, so that we can make sure as they're building.
Okay. The
We
last
pay
question on
attention.
your executive sessions. At what time, at any time, do you report out on your executive sessions that you have in regards to the motions or the proposals being brought before the committee?
If there is any business conducted after an executive session, which we can only go into for a few different reasons under the law, if there's, most times we don't have any business conducted after, and we do it at a future meeting if there's business to be conducted, and normally that's what happens. But when we leave, we'll let people know if we're going to make any decisions afterwards, so they can wait. And our 3 reasons we can have it are real estate, legal matters, and personnel. For our personnel is the only reasons that a council or a public entity can go into executive session.
Okay.
It has
It's
to
only
be
for
covered.
discussion. The decisions have to be made
They have to
in
be,
open
all be
session.
made right here, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I've been here a couple of times for city council meetings, and I'm getting a chance to stretch my legs a little bit, as you can see, but I just had a couple of questions, and we'll go from there. Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for coming.
Thank you.
Do I have any other public comments, citizen comments? All right. Moving on to staff reports, we have Mr. Bagdonis, our administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members have a copy of my report. I don't have anything to add other than some items that are specifically listed later in the agenda.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Bagdonis? Seeing none, we'll move to our law director.
No report tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Our finance director always has a report for us, so come on up. Usually a great report for us, right?
Well, let's hope it's great. Council has a copy of my reports, abbreviated report this evening covering the RETA income tax reports for June and July. For June, the city collected $331,499, which was approximately $42,973 more than we received in June of 2017. And then in July, we received $364,040 in income tax revenue, which again was more than we received in July of 2017 by approximately $16,000. Our year-to-date collection is $2,206,390. That's about 64% of our income tax that we budgeted for 2018. So two good months. We're ahead of where we were in June and July of 2017. Lastly, council received the results of our bond anticipation notes. We had the bid results. The municipal administrator emailed all those results to you folks on July 10th, and we received 3 bids. Our best bid was submitted by Oppenheimer, and our net interest cost was 2.1678%. We're scheduled to receive the proceeds of those notes tomorrow, which is $1,508,000, and then on Wednesday we'll be paying off our 2017 notes, and that's in the amount of $1,555,500. So we will be getting our note proceeds for the upcoming year tomorrow, and we'll be paying off our debt from last year on Wednesday. So I don't see any problems with any of those disbursements, so hopefully everything will go well if anybody has any questions.
Thank you. It's a good rate, by the way. Any questions, Mr. Pedro?
John, I think you may have said it, but maybe to say it, I'll ask it differently. So year-to-date, compared to 17, we have $143,000 ahead of projections. Is that correct? On page A.
Those are actuals.
Yeah.
For July, page 4.
Yeah, so you have a month-to-date 2018 versus 2017 at the bottom there, $143,748. That's ahead of estimated projections, correct?
That's ahead of last year.
Ahead of last year, ahead of last year, yes.
The
Now
budget page is
Now my
next.
question is, how does that compare to a year ago against 16? Do we know that?
Well, we had in 16, what we had a year-to-date in July of $2,080,000, and right now we're at, for 18 in July is $2,206,000. So we're doing better, and as we mentioned last year, with our net profit tax was a little bit down, and for whatever reason, and if you notice, I believe it's on page 6 for July. We're doing quite a bit better than we did last year in terms of our net profit. In July, net profit is about $213,000, $214,000, and you look at the same period in 2017, and it was only $149,000. So whatever the issue was, our businesses are recovering and doing well, and we are at the I guess a little bit past the midpoint of the year, so hopefully we'll keep that momentum going and end the year either at or above our estimate for income tax.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Bagdonis.
One thing that I like to point out on these reports is, if you look at page 5, and it's good that we're ahead of last year, but we budgeted to be ahead of last year too. So what I like to compare is what percentage do we collect at this time last year of our budget, or our total that we received last year, versus what did we budget for this year. And so on page 5, it shows through the end of July, we had collected 61.4% of the total revenue at the end of July. At this point, based on the number we budgeted, we're at 63.6. So that tells me we're about 2.2% ahead of what we had budgeted. So that's always good to have a positive number.
Good. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Gokenhour? Thank you. Next, we have our treasurer.
We're in the middle of software conversion right now.
Oh, great. Hope it's going well. All right, thank you. All right. Sorry to hear that. I hope it goes well. Next, we have our police chief.
Evening, council members. My items tonight are kind of broken up like the agenda. I've got one old business and two new business. Something I forgot to mention at last month's meeting, although I promised Karen that I would, I just totally forgot about it. But I did remember this month. Back in mid-June, we began uploading all of our crash reports, both the public property and private property reports, to a website. It's operated by Carfax. Frankly, it's their way of getting accurate records of cars that have been wrecked. But they offer a service called crashdocs.org. And so all of our accident reports going back to the beginning of, I believe, 16 are on there now. They've all been uploaded as PDF files. Citizens, when we handle an accident, we give all the people involved a card with that website on it and the report number. They go to crashdocs.org. They can get their report 24/7. Once it's been uploaded, and it takes a day or so once they get it to actually get it scanned and online. We send it as a PDF file. We've been sending the photos from the crash too, and those are there. So they're putting those on too. And it's to citizens for their individual crashes. There's no cost, because there's really no cost to us. We're running an input in a scanner and just uploading it as a PDF. So for citizens, there's no cost. Now, insurance companies and attorneys, we do have attorneys that every week send me email. They want all of our crashes, look at the business. There is a charge for them. It doesn't come to us. It goes to CrashDocs. Although the insurance companies, if they're smart at all, they've got the accident report in their insured's name. They can go through the individual portal and still get it for free. So anyway, that was something I forgot to mention last month, but they are now available 24/7. And as of right now, they are up to date with all of our crashes. The last one the other day is up there. I checked this morning.
Chief, and the website's
CrashDocs, DOCS,
Okay.
.org. Now, when you go through as an individual, when you go through, it looks like there's a charge, Okay, I've had people call me about that. The way it's set up, it looks like they're gonna charge you for it, but when you get to the end of it and get ready to download, it's zero. And it allows you to download it as a PDF file, so you can get your crash report that way.
Thank you.
Okay. Of course, we did have a vacancy due to retirement last month, and we conducted interviews of the top 6 on the list again. And after some careful deliberation, the administrator and I have chosen a young man who's coming to us, works full-time right now at Toledo Correctional, and then is a part-time officer out in Walbridge, a young man by the name of Matthew Nisley. He's already completed his psychological. I've got the results back on that. He's not totally crazy. And which would have helped, actually. And his physical is tomorrow. So once I get his clearance, we'll be able to get a start date for him. He, of course, wants to give 2 weeks' notice to his current employer. So we should have him on board sometime in early August and get him started in the field training program. And then, final item, if you are very observant, and I commend you if you are, you'll notice that there are a couple of new cameras on the outside of the building. I've been kind of concerned about areas of the building that weren't covered by the security cameras. We had some around the police department and in the lobby out there, but nothing on this end. So was able to find some money in my budget and upgrade that existing system from 4 cameras to 8. They've been working. They worked last Monday and then didn't show up the rest of the week because they were over in Cleveland. But they worked all day today, and they'll be back tomorrow to finish it up. Once they do, we'll have coverage across the back of the building in the alley. We'll have coverage on this lot down here. And this is recorded and kept on a DVR in the police department. It's an 8-camera system. And in addition, we've added a 42-inch screen above one of the desks back there in the squad room where the officers sit that'll have the 8 segments, so anytime day or night they can look up and they can see what's going on too. There's no sound with it. We don't record sound, but at least we have some video and some surveillance on some areas of the building other than just down at our end. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. I just noticed something when I was looking at the attachment or the highlights, some of the highlights. So it seems a little bit longer, but it is summertime when more people are out. But have you noticed more problems by like development by the expressway, I'll call it, or 24? But Prairie Boulevard's noted on here a lot, but we still have a lot of workers and things. Has there been any increase in things going on in that area or that you've noticed?
Not really. You know, we haven't had a whole lot in the way of thefts. We've had a couple of minor ones, but
Just a lot of warrants, like they've stopped people who have warrants out.
There-
But I don't know if that's out of town people now that we have an interchange there and people working.
a lot of it is, and because we have the construction out there and we have the growth out there, that's kind of where they're concentrating. I mean, they're downtown also, but we've kind of got them concentrating west a little bit. So as an extension of that, they are getting more activity out there, making more stops.
I'm just noticing more noted.
Yeah,
There's more
and the
traffic.
Kroger, let's face it, the Kroger does draw people in from off of 24, and some of the problems we have had have been people from out of town who have taken the advantage of the fact that Kroger sits right there on the interchange.
Okay. Any questions for the chief?
Just one quick one, if I may, Chief. I heard from a resident who heard from their neighbor that their dog was attacked by a coyote. So I wondered if that is a problem you've seen, or was that an isolated?
Yeah, I talked with that lady the other day. She called me on Thursday or Friday and asked the same question. Hear them occasionally, especially out where I live, but have not seen any. The coyote is sort of an assumption made by the doctor. It could have been another dog. But we've not seen any coyotes in town that I know of. All I have heard some people have. We have, at the police department, we haven't seen any.
Thanks, that's good.
I was actually gonna bring that up. There are coyotes on the island behind us. And we also had a cat that was in Waterworks Park that was attacked by something. I don't necessarily know that it was a coyote. There's a lot of eagles, you know, and they can pick up almost anything. So, small dogs, really any size dog, if you're letting your dog out. I understand the lady let her dog out and went back to check on it, and there was a problem. So you really have to keep an eye on your animals at all
Coyotes
hours.
are opportunistic predators, but they're just doing what they do.
Right.
And I certainly don't want people trying to rid the town of coyotes, you know, shooting guns in the city.
No.
That would be illegal.
Right.
But you're right, the eagles too, it's not unusual at all to find pet collars in eagle nests. You know, that's all that's left of the pet, so.
Right.
And I think some of where the coyotes were mentioned, it's the strip on the edge of town, which is the farmland.
Yeah.
And actually back where the city owns in that whole, we put the neighborhoods up to that, there's still a tree line.
Yep.
There's quite a few animals back there.
Yeah.
So it would be good to be aware if you have
Yeah, except
smaller
out-
animals.
Where I live out west of White House out there,
Yeah,
you know, with two small dogs, you watch them very and chickens, you
Right.
watch them very closely between the hawks and the eagles, and we had a red fox out there one night. We've heard the coyotes, not seen them,
right.
so.
Good that you haven't had a lot of reports of them right now, so that's good. Just one more comment, on the top of your spreadsheet on June, it didn't add it, tally up your numbers there. Cause at
I'm
first
sorry?
I said, the top total offense report total, it
Yeah.
said 0, and I was like, wow, we had a great June, but it's the 26 and the 4.
Yeah.
I just wanna let you know, just so. so
I
catch up.
think her
No.
spreadsheet must have, her
I was
spreadsheet must
very-
have dropped the ball on that one.
I was very impressed, I was like, wow, how do you do
Zero.
that? Any other questions? Yes,
More of a comment. I said something to the chief beforehand. I got to meet one of the new police officers the other day. He dropped off my packet, Mr. McConnell.
Jake McConnell.
Nice Irish young man, but, and you tell him another young officer joined us, so, I'm liking what I'm seeing. And he seemed very enthusiastic, and thanks for bringing on some good officers.
We try to pick the good ones.
thanks, chief. Next, we have our fire chief.
Evening, everyone. My report's in your packet. Last month, I added double-tone runs and no standby runs. And this month, I've added also automatic aid responses and the regular mutual aid responses. The number that we've received and what we've given to White House a month later. Last month, or in June, we had 62 runs. That's about average for us now. July is coming. We're getting a lot of runs in July, so it'll be next month's report. But we've increased the runs. For the year, we're about 2 runs as of today. 2 runs below last year's, and last year's run was 700 runs. So we're keeping steady with last year. Another note is I've received approval from BWC for the grant for the protective firefighting hoods and for the gloves. And Mr. Gogenauer, we should be getting some money in the bank account for that from BWC. And we only had to pay 1/5 of it, so it's we got a pretty good deal on that. I'm also submitting for a grant from Firehouse Subs. They allow so much money each year for fire stations around the country, so I'm gonna put in for that. And as far as Nexus, it's still pending review. I talked to the White House chief today, and he gave me some contact information how to get that pushed through. So that's a $19,000 grant. So working on that. That's really all I have.
Thank you, chief. Did everything go well with fireworks?
Yes, no problems at all.
Great. Was there an accident right after the fireworks in
Oh,
the
yeah.
township?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
closed
on Dutch
there.
Road, yeah. That was rear end accident.
Everybody's all right.
We had 4 people sign off, and 1 went by life supply.
Oh,
Through the same routes.
It was, the timing was right after everybody started leaving.
Yeah,
was closed.
wasn't paying attention and ran in the back of somebody.
Right. Any questions for the chief and Mrs. Duncan?
So we had a car hit the apartment building across from Barb's house.
Yeah, right by your house, yes.
Did you deem that as unstable, or who does that says it's not habitable now?
What happened was, I happened to be at Story Point those past 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, with the building inspector going through the fire alarm system. And we were just finishing up, and I happened to leave before he did. The run come in, so I went over there. Said, I better get the building department over here. And you know, their vast knowledge of building construction, obviously that's why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
I went and looked at it, and I said, something doesn't look right in this. So it's a good thing I did, because the corner that gentleman hit with the car took out a load-bearing wall.
Oh.
So the front of the building could have collapsed. I know it knocked it off its foundation. Luckily, there was just one minor injury in that.
Yep.
But the building is, I think the other tenant in 146 may have moved out too. And the gentleman owns a restoration company. I think he's doing repairs on it.
Yeah. Okay.
But,
We drive by it, and I didn't know if it was gonna, you know, I think they're gonna have to really do some major stuff to get it fixed, and it's probably gonna be a while.
Yeah. luckily, there were 3 children and an adult male in the house, and none of them were in the room when it happened.
Right, where it got hit.
So,
Thank you.
Other questions for the chief? All right, thank you, chief.
thank you.
Next, we have our Public Works Director.
Thank you, Mayor. You have a copy of my report. Actually, I really have nothing to add to it tonight. However, I did want to mention that the Public Works technician, the new technician, started today. His name is Nick Wagner. He comes from the Andersons in the grain division. He seemed to gel really nice with the guys today. He's really eager to learn, so I think he's going to work out real well for us.
Great.
Other than that, I really don't have anything unless you have a question.
What area will he be in? Is that water and sewer? Is that general?
He's gonna be in all 4 areas.
He's
I
gonna do
mean,
all
I
4.
want to try to get him
Well-rounded.
acclimated to probably a little bit of every department
Does he
at
have his
first.
certifications?
Pardon?
Does he have any certifications?
Negative, not at this time.
Not yet.
But he does have a CDL,
Okay,
and he has operated some equipment, so that was a plus.
that's good. Any questions for Mr. Blair?
Just more of a comment. I know that the bridge project is moving along. Any updates from your perspective on, I think, August the 3rd, I believe, is the...
I think we'll find that out tomorrow. Mr. Bagdonis and I have a progress meeting, and after that, we can tell you more
Good.
information.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Blair.
Thank you.
Next, we have communications from council. Start with Mrs. Duncan.
Well, we talked about the coyotes. The only other thing that I had was I thought the fireworks were excellent as always and well attended. It was a reasonably warm day again, but the weather held, so great job.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pedro.
Just to echo, thanks to the Boom Committee and the church that put on the activities at the school. It's pretty neat. I mean, see the young families come into town and enjoy it. And I got to speak for my own family. My grandkids were there and they had fun. But so it's great. I know Barb, you and Mary and others, Mr. Duncan, and many others do a great job of promoting that. So thank you. The other thing is, thank the Chamber of Commerce. I was able to participate in their golf tournament last Friday. Poorly, but I did participate.
Good job.
And then they do it. The Chamber does a lot, and it was a good group. Also, I know that Bergman's our contractor for the road repairs, and those haven't started yet, I believe. Okay. And then the Rotary and some other folks in town are putting on a nice festival this Saturday downtown Waterville. Encourage you to come out and enjoy it. And Economic Development Committee, it continues to meet. Picked up a couple new board members, Mr. Fry, Mr. Fritz, and a young lady from Genoa Bank. And while I'm thinking of it, Jim Bagdonis will help me out. But so we got a couple new board members, and I cannot remember her name. But Ron? I can't either. So, anyways, it's a good group and making progress thanks to the board members and Todd Dickerson, our coordinator. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Pedro. Mr. Rosie?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Fry?
No report this evening.
Mrs. Bruno?
No report, Your Honor.
Mr. Bruno?
No report, Your Honor.
All right. Just a thank you to Vision Ministries. They brought it up for the fireworks pre-program. That was well attended when I stopped by, and they had food. It was very good. And just thank you to the staff for helping with the fireworks, because when they picked them out this year, I thought they were extra good this year. I don't know. Maybe it was just me, but they were very nice. So thank you to the town for helping, and then all the people that donate and spend their time on it. I think it's a tradition now, and I think it's a good one for our town. We actually attract a lot of out-of-town people, too, that look forward to it. I heard from several people. We were one of 2 that still had the fireworks on the 4th of July, because we've had that debate up here before. And a lot of people came to our town from Sylvania and whatnot because we had them out here, and they really enjoyed them. So it was nice to hear. All right, we're going to move on to old business, and we have discussion for possible formation of a Union Cemetery District with Waterville Township and the Village of White House. Council was presented this information at the last meeting. We've received maybe some additional. And Mr. Bagdonis, do you have any update from the other participants or anything?
Just mention, as you just did, that Mr. Blair contacted Fort Meigs Union Cemetery, and so the information you have is from them. I don't really have too much to add beyond my memo from June 22nd. I did talk to the administrator in White House, but that was before they were going to meet to discuss this subject, so I don't know what the result of their discussion has been. I talked to township trustees, and they were invited to the meeting tonight, but apparently we're not able to make it, so I have nothing to add beyond those remarks.
All right. Does council have any further discussion on that this evening from the new information you received in your packet or anything? Mrs. Duncan?
Until a township trustee shows up, I think we need to table it,
Okay.
because I'd like
Or
to
we
ask
can
him
leave it on there as
some
a
questions.
discussion item.
Yeah. Is that
Great.
okay?
Yep. We'll leave it on. Anybody have any specifics tonight? Thoughts? All right, we'll keep that on there. It'll be under our old business. New business, we have a referral to the Planning Commission, Waterville Landing Self-Storage Facility Special Use Permit Application, included in your packet. Mr. Bagdonis, do you have any other information on this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This item and the next item, item B, under new business, are directly related. And in your packet, you have ordinance 15-18, and attached to that is a site plan for a self-storage facility. This is a 5.1 acre parcel of land on the east side of Prairie Boulevard, south of State Route 64. It's zone C4, and this is proposed as a special use permit. So the first step would be for council to refer the application for the special use permit to the Planning Commission. Their next meeting is scheduled for August 6th, and they would then make a recommendation back to council. We also have in the form of ordinance 15, the first reading of the special use permit, and this would go through the normal 3 readings, and we would have a public hearing at the September 10th council meeting, and of course at that point council would have a recommendation back from the Planning Commission.
Thank you. We need a motion and second to refer this to the Planning Commission.
So moved?
Second.
Any question or discussion on the referral? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That will be referred on. We'll hear back from them. And then our first reading of ordinance 15-18, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Waterville by granting a special use permit to construct a self-storage facility on a 5.1 acre parcel of land on the east side of Prairie Boulevard, south of State Route 64, zone C4, and declaring an emergency. First readings this evening, July 23rd. Second reading will be August 27th, 2018. Third reading and a public hearing and our legislative action would be scheduled for September 10th, 2018. Is there any further discussion this evening on this?
I just wonder if we've had any other interest in any of that land along Prairie Boulevard where this facility would be developed.
Not that I'm aware of in that part of Prairie Boulevard, and actually in conjunction with this project, Prairie Boulevard will need to be extended a bit farther south to get frontage on this parcel of land. So it would have been difficult for there to be any interest without Prairie Boulevard being extended.
Is that fall under Devonshire still, or the individual original developer?
I believe Devonshire would be the seller of the property.
Oh, the seller, right. I have not heard that they've had other interest, but they would be the one, receiving those inquiries.
And who pays for the extension then of the street?
Well, that actually was a requirement back several years ago when that land, including where the Meyer store was platted, and we've extended the escrow agreement. They would have till the end of this year to extend that part of the street. So that was the original developer's obligation to extend that.
Question? Any other questions from the first reading? All right. Seeing none, Public hearing, residential overlay district zoning permit, Waterville Place Apartments. Application for zoning permit number 2662, proposed 7 buildings, 252 unit residential development located on the northwest side of Cray Boulevard, east of US 24. And we need a motion to go into the public hearing. Is that what you're asking for?
So moved.
Second.
Or no?
Well,
I was gonna open it.
we would just have a public hearing.
All right.
Ultimately,
You want it
whatever
on the
action
permit
council takes on this
tonight.
issue would be my motion.
Okay. Let's open the public hearing, then we can go back to your motion. Do we have anybody in the audience who would like to speak? Yes. Please state your name if you could for us. And who you're with, or,
Nathan Wagner, Cash Wagner and Associates. I'm the civil engineer of record representing the proposed developer. Like you said, it's a 7 building, 252 unit market rate apartment complex on Cray Boulevard. We went through Plan Commission and they've recommended approval. Now we're here tonight for the residential overlay district. I guess I'd entertain any questions you would have about the development.
all right. Does council have any specific for the, yes?
Nathan?
Yes.
Nathan, can you just expand on market rate? What does that mean?
I guess maybe I could touch, maybe some of the gentlemen that brought some issues up earlier, but market rate is not subsidized, not tax rate, or tax credit, not Section 8. There's different names for it, I guess. It's market rate.
Okay, and then what, is there a budget, or maybe you're still determining that? What would be a monthly?
As far as, yeah, that's kind of out of my realm as far as setting a monthly rental fee.
Okay.
But they,
I think market rate is going to be what the market will
Will
bear
yeah.
Right.
to fill the apartments.
yeah.
Other questions while we have that?
Well, the only other one, Mary and I were talking, so I think she's got a few. The other one that I have was, will your company manage this? We talked about earlier about somebody develops it, builds it, and then
Yeah.
somebody manages it. How's that
So
operate?
I'm the engineer of record. I'm not with the owner. I work for the owner as a consultant. But they do own and manage and maintain their own apartments.
Okay.
They don't get, like a third, it sounds like the gentleman earlier was dealing with a third-party management company that was not on site. They have a full-time resident manager that lives on site, works on site in the office. They have full-time groundskeepers as well. Maintenance personnel. It's not like you call somebody and wait for somebody from a third party or from out of town to come. They have full-time on-site groundskeepers and resident managers.
Okay.
Do you know how long they've been in business?
I've worked for them since 1998,
Okay.
and they were in business well before me.
And so the buildings that you've engineered for them in the past, they still own?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they do not flip them. They maintain them, own them. They do their own market studies to see, what's a good market.
Mm-hmm.
They build them, they own them, they maintain them. And, several of the old ones they're going back through now and doing remodels.
And I think I read somewhere, where's the closest property similar to this in this region?
Dundee.
Dundee?
Yeah.
Is that
That's
south of Cabela's, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's the newest. I'm kind of
Right.
curious about the oldest, so, what's their oldest building?
Closest?
Oldest.
I mean, where?
Yeah, curious.
Oldest.
I'd like to almost look at a building that they have owned since you've worked for them, and they continue to maintain it.
Well, the
'Cause
first
that's
one,
our biggest concern.
the first one I worked on is in Evansville, Indiana.
Okay.
They kind of traveled south developing. That's how I got hooked up with them.
Okay.
We went south developing other apartments in, Tennessee, Alabama, and then now they're kind of come back north to northwest Ohio and Michigan area.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
That's it. How many developments do they have then, Nathan? Just any idea?
175.
Of this size, or more or less, bigger or smaller? than this?
The biggest that I know of that I dealt with is in El Paso, Texas. It's 700 and some units. The average is around 144, 180 units.
One of the concerns I had was that I think this is done in 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2, and so
Yes.
what would be the timetable between the 2 phases, and what would happen if phase 1 failed? What would you do about phase 2 then?
It's set up kind of for the reason I think you're asking about. It'll be set up as 2 separate lots, if you will, with 2 different loans. So in other words, the bank doesn't want to lend money for all 7 buildings in case if they see a failure coming. They want to lend for 3 or 4 buildings, see their occupancy rate at least 50% before they'll agree to lend on the second phase. So ideally, unless something changes in the market, I think their intention is to go right into phase 2. So it'll be like a seamless transition.
And then, in looking at the sketch, it looks like it's being developed right where there's a grove of trees on Prairie Boulevard, I think, sort of across from Story Point.
Right.
And I'm a little disappointed, I guess, that the trees, looks like all the trees would be removed.
Yeah, I think there'll be a stretch of them on the west side that'll remain, that are actually not on the property, but it'd be a small stretch of trees. I'm sorry? There'll be several trees added as part of our landscape plan.
Just with 252 units, any idea what the population would be of the entire complex in general? I mean, it's mostly 2-bedroom apartments, I think, and some 1-bedroom.
Mostly 2-bedroom because they don't want 3 or 4 bedroom to invite 2 families living in 1 unit type thing. Their market they go after is more of a young professional, maybe moving in for 2 or 3 years, or sometimes corporate housing. They do some corporations want to rent several units or even a full building, have them furnished for their employees that travel and come in and don't want to spend the money on hotels or can't get a hotel. So their market is also does not tend to have a lot of children, even though there'll be some, but it's more the young professional, either moving in for a couple of years before they leave again, or starter before they buy a house.
It's not so much transient. I mean, it's long-term leases, 1 and 2 year leases.
Yes.
I may have more, Your Honor, but go ahead.
All right, other comments?
Did you have some dates as far as the timetable was concerned?
They're ready to break ground as soon as we get approval.
And then how long to get the first plat, if you will, done?
I'd say get the first building done and open 8 months.
Okay.
6 to 8 months.
And then, I was concerned about the community impact as well, primarily where the schools are concerned. But you're feeling like a development such as this doesn't typically, based on your experience,
Yeah.
doesn't yield a lot of children. Because we've had, correspondence with our school superintendent that is always
Yeah.
concerned about the number of children moving in, only because we got to keep that in proportion with the
Right,
school
right.
size.
So no,
primary schools.
I don't know. They're not expecting a large influx of children.
Okay. So you did say that there will be long-term leases, though?
Yes.
Okay, 1 to 2 year.
So I know you had said that the rent is market rate. What's like a median rent average amongst all your buildings? I mean, for the 2-bedroom, is it 1,000, 1,100, 1,200?
I don't get into the market myself. I don't know if I'm sure it's going to be 800 north. Don't hold me to it. It very well could be 1,000, but I don't know.
Other questions?
Regarding the phasing, are you doing the front 4 buildings first, the front part first, and then the back
Front.
3 buildings?
Right.
So the first 4 buildings, along with the office, will
Be first.
be in the phase 1?
Yes.
We need to go out and go on the
Hold
record.
on one moment. Do you
Name,
mind?
Address.
Yeah, because it is a hearing, but I just need your name and address up there so it's recorded, if you don't mind. And then if you need to answer, you guys can switch, so. Just state your name and your address, please.
My name's Bill Niss, and I live at 8038 Donington. My question is that, do you use local labor for your construction force?
Yeah, the answer would be yes. I mean, they'll go out to bid, try to find some local construction crews, site contractors, building contractors to help build this thing.
All right, other public comments? Yes, if you state your name and address. Sorry, everybody must go up there and you're recorded and on TV and YouTube, yeah. But we do it for the recording, so.
My name is Sharon O'Rourke, and I live at 1544 Black Hawk, and that's in the new subdivision. And one of the questions I had was concerning the traffic pattern. Has that been considered at all, what it's going to do to Prairie Boulevard because of the increased amount of homes that are going in there? We've got the condos across the street, and then we got new condos across from the fire station, and of course you have that senior housing. And right now it's kind of hard to even get out of Kroger's on the Prairie Boulevard at certain times. You have to wait till the train passes, you might say, all the cars turning in and so forth. So that was a concern. And another concern would be, what are these apartments, how is it going to affect all these big new homes that are going up? Here we have apartments. We didn't know that when we built our home a few months ago there. And I never dreamed that I would have to look at apartments. And that concerns me there. And of course you're taking away that big clump of trees, and you said there was going to be some left, but I don't know what some is, because we do have deer back there too. We've had 5 buck in our backyard, and it's nice to see them hopping, you know, over the ditch and so forth. I mean, it's the wildlife back there, because we butt to the ditch. And so these are concerns there. How is that even going to affect our property values with apartments? Now, I also heard that the cornfield that is on the other side of the ditch will soon down the road, 8 years from now, have small homes there. So I don't know, that was part of I think a long-range plan that I picked up information on. I think and who is the builder? Are we allowed to ask who the builder is of these apartments?
You're certainly allowed to ask, but I might point out that this has been zoned that way, part of the master plan, for over 10 years. So everybody that bought out there, everybody that built out there, everything that's been out there has been on the books for
Well, that may be true,
long
but not to the
time.
people that were buying the homes, because that was not conveyed.
That is not our problem. That's a lack of communication from whom you bought and a lack of research when you bought. I'm sorry to say that, but those are just the plain facts. That's why there's a master plan in a community, zoning code, plan, everything is here as a matter of public record. It all went through council, planning commission, zoning, and it's been that way, and it is zoned for apartments, R4, and has been.
Well, that answers a lot there.
Thanks for your comments there. Do I have, yes, if you don't mind going back up and stating your name again, yeah. Yeah.
Frank L. Wright Sr., 8129 Donington. I guess I want to jump on the party and jump on the bandwagon too. Has the city plan given some thought? Example, in the city of Dundee was always considered a one-horse town for a long time. And then they built Cabela's there. They got more houses and more apartments and more road movement than they had ever before. People used to drive through there to get to the expressway 23. Now all of a sudden you got people living as far out as a mile from the city of Dundee, and Waterville is going to fall in that category. We talk about it as something to toss around, but pretty soon 30,000, 40,000 people in the city, 50, 60, 70,000 people coming to the city. Why do you think they move all the way out here just so they don't have to have the fire department running up and down the street every 5 minutes? The police department think they're busy now. Soon somebody moves in here that's considered to be undesirable, things are going to happen. We haven't had that happen. I've only lived here for 4 years, going on 5 right now, so I'm new. I just got my pants wet, but it's going to change drastically in the next 5 years or less. And so this city plan that you're talking about, that's 10 years, did you give it some real serious thought of what happened if you let Prairie Boulevard all of a sudden become a highway zone? Have they put rumble sticks to keep the cars from going faster along that area? And if you do get the Myers, as everybody keeps talking about it, if Myers moves in over there across the street behind Kroger's and what have you, then it's going to be a matter of time before an Olive Garden moves in or somebody else moves in, and it's just going to get extremely that much more worse. I'm not against the guy for building the houses or whatever it may be, and her concern about the fact that all of a sudden the house that she bought was X number of dollars is now a little less because of the fact now you got apartment buildings across the street from where you're at. I didn't even know nothing about the storage thing that was going to be built, but that's going to happen. I'm just throwing a little wrench into the thing, like, give it some more thought because it's going to happen. The town will grow, and you may not be able to handle it. The fire department you have now may need to get bigger. So.
Thank you. Do I have anybody else for the public hearing? Yes. State your name and address as well, please.
Denise Niss, 8038 Donington Drive, also from Bridgehampton Woods. I also am concerned about this apartment complex going up for crime, for the beauty. I don't mind being called a tree hugger. I work on the landscaping committee and enjoy keeping our common area out front, and we enjoy seeing the woods wherever they may be. So I just wanted to make sure that my voice was heard. That's why we came to the meeting tonight. We're concerned about crime coming into our neighborhood. We are very close to where these apartments are proposed to be built, and the clientele that might come into the area. $800 a month, that could promote a single parent with a few children coming into the area, impacting our schools. I have grandchildren that go to our great Anthony Wayne School District, so just very concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have anybody else in the public, in the audience? Any comments from council? Mr. Pedro?
Just more of a general comment to your comment about buying the home, and our solicitor mentioned. This is a task that we all take seriously, and we want you to know, and all the folks that are listening, that these public records, these plans, I remember 15 or 20 years ago when this all was, sort of being put out there for a possibility. And please know that those council members that sat up here at that time did take those things into consideration. As an example, I moved out here 25 years ago, and some of the same things. There was a lot of farm field. But I think Waterville is probably one of the few communities, and we have an engineer here, a consulting engineer, does a really good job about planning. If there's going to be a Meijer store, then it should be over here, rather than just plop down. So it's not, it's difficult to go back 20 years ago, because some of you weren't here, and you didn't know what was going on, or 25, whatever it was. But I just want folks to know, we can disagree, but there was a plan in place. Now, maybe we can do a better job to make sure folks know that these resources are out there so they are aware of it. The second thing is, we've seen this happen before, where folks come in to build either commercial projects or housing or apartments or whatever it might be, and this is the time, because nothing's been built yet. This is the time to organize your ideas. You say some of the trees. You say you don't know how much is some of the tree. Well, let's count them. Are there 100? And maybe we can work out a deal that 50 stay. I don't want to put words in your mouth. It's your job. But now's the time to start implementing some of these potential fixes, if you will. Because the plan and the master plan was set so many years ago. We can't go back and change that. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not agreeing with you. I'm just saying there was a master plan, and maybe we can do a better job telling the developers, telling the homeowners, or somehow communicating. But at the end of the day, there's only so much we can do, because we're not responsible. But I gotta believe business owners want to work with families and want to make this right. Thank you.
Comments?
I have one more question,
Yes.
Your Honor. Actually, Mr. Wright touched on this, but it was on my list of questions for the police chief and the fire chief, and maybe even Public Works. I wondered if the development of this size, how it would affect our ability to give service, if we're gonna have to expand the police force or the fire department, because we're adding, 252 units in a very small area. And likewise, although I think from a Public Works standpoint, they'll maintain the interior, but it might affect the roadways.
Well, anytime you add this volume of residences, you're gonna add workload to all of the city services. The amount of attention or amount of runs that we get in there is gonna depend entirely on who's living there, type of clientele that it draws. I won't speak for the fire chief, but it might be a little bit different for his troops, because they can get runs for pretty much anybody. But usually if it's a well-maintained complex, the problems are, I don't say minimal, but they're not great. However, it is growth, and somewhere down the road, the safety forces and all the city forces will have to grow to keep up with it. It gets to the point where we just don't have enough people on the street. The optimal number right now is 2.5 officers per 1,000 population. So we're not off that too far right now, but if it grows and we really start to grow quickly, then you've got to take a look at that number and start adding people.
Thanks, Chief.
And I suppose to offset those, you're going to have 252 people paying income tax to the city to pay for the increased demand that there requires in services. I know that I moved to Perrysburg area 45 years ago, and it has just exploded. But again, good planning and vision, they have kept pace, both police, fire, and other services, because that's the nature of a community that grows.
I'd just like to reflect on what you said, Mr. Dombey, and what the police chief has said. We need to plan for the future. And Chief Meyer and I are working on different types of things to make our department run smoother as it moves into the future. And be it Story Point or Meyer going in, we're going to try and meet some criteria that we're going to set so we can move for the future. So, one brick at a time.
I know we've had an issue in the past with some construction where the fire trucks had a very tight fit to get in and out of the one area. Is this addressed in this plan?
Can you describe which area that was, Mayor?
Where it was tight?
Yeah.
With the single-car garages? I know they were, I don't know what that development's called, but
Oh,
behind
on
Fifth
that-
Third?
Down on Waterville, Monclova, off
Yeah.
Waterville.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, are the
Those are
plans for this, the roads are wide enough, we're not gonna have an issue with the trucks getting in and out?
I've gone over it thoroughly 3 or 4 times. I met with Mr. Bagdonis, and they've been turned over to, you've got them, Tom, haven't you? Chris, our city, our consulting city engineer. Yes, I mean, they're even planning on putting an extra water line in to run off, to come back toward it, so it's no dead end, it's gonna be a loop system. So we're gonna have, and each building's gonna have a fire sprinkler system. That's required now. So, different, the fire trucks, yes, to answer your question, yeah. Plenty of room.
Good. Thank you.
Like, as an example, fire lane signs, now's the time we're gonna tell them that they need to put them in and keep them maintained. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
And one other item I wanted to address, the public safety is meeting, committee's meeting next week, 10 days from now. And we are gonna be looking at the traffic study, Kroger, that whole area. So that will take some time to develop. I would encourage you to become involved. It's a good way to learn. Thank you.
Make a couple comments. The fire department did do a nice plan review comments that was in there for
Yeah,
one.
I read it. I just didn't know if that was.
Yeah. So that's good. That is something we always do consider, but this project's a lot of buildings. And also in the plans, they do have to trigger a traffic study before they can do phase 2. I believe it was recommended in there, taking into account how many cars that would be and everything else out there. So those points are well taken because it would involve definitely turn lanes and making that road. We've had it for a long time as construction sometimes goes, as they have to put in the infrastructure and the roads, and then the buildings come, but you definitely have to make sure it's big enough. I can tell you 20 years ago, Waterville, Monclova was not busy at all. I take Dutch to Waterville, Monclova because I live by a lot of these really nice people in here. And I used to pull out, go up, look, pull out, and I would say this when I got onto council in the early 2000s, and they would crack up. They wouldn't laugh about it, but I go, I just want everybody to know, I can tell by how long I wait to turn left now, or right, but now to turn right is just as bad. So I said to myself back then, I said proper planning would be that Waterville, Monclova is now one of our main arteries, and now with the development which is mostly due to the bypass that came through, that this council did not decide. I was not on council when it happened. I wasn't a huge fan of the interchange being put there because I knew it would cause growth in our town. I got here in the 90s, and I knew that an interchange and a bypass with a stop in Waterville would bring what you're talking about tonight. So part of my thing on council, I was here, and they had already been discussing, as Mr. Pedro said, this land that the farmers sold. The farmers wanted to sell. It was actually township. Our neighborhood was actually a township. We were told to sign something for water and sewer because they were in the process of a legal fight with the farmer, but to annex our neighborhood in. Why do people want to be annexed in? They want water and sewer. There are ways to get it. We were paying double in our neighborhood until we were part of the city. Long story short, took a big look at, it was already in process, but we took a big look at that batch of land. It's very large over there that the farmers were selling. They wanted to annex it in. As a city, I can say we were a village at the time. One consideration, we knew the road would probably go there. That's why they were selling the land, most of them. That's why the developer wanted to own the land. And we tried to use foresight to understand that with an interchange, I drive to Indiana to go back to my hometown. Napoleon, Defiance, take a look at all of them. What a road does like that is it brings a gas station, it brings restaurants, it brings people, it brings Krogers that want to get very large. People drive 40 miles away to come to our Kroger. I can only tell you that there's probably no perfection up here, but when we decided to zone and we had to make decisions to bring it in how it should be zoned, not that zoning cannot be changed at times, but what we set out is that any commercial should be as close as it could be to that interchange and not amongst our neighborhoods. The second thing, different housing is okay in cities. It has to be well done, and the city has to pay attention, and the forces that we employ need to pay attention to make sure it's all done well. I think we could all agree that we're a small city, so we've done a very good job of watching what does come in. There have been other fights previous to this one. The C4, which is or the R4, excuse me, C is all the Kroger and whatnot. The residential is the highest density. I don't think this one is maxed out actually, even though it sounds like it when you first hear about it. There's different densities for each code. R4 is obviously the most condensed, like apartments. R3, R2, R1. Most of us live in R1, quarter acre lots. There's R2 over by where we're talking, where the homes currently are off of Prey. There is a stretch of R1 along the road, actually on Waterville, Monclova. As you go back, the thought was the density should be more dense back by commercial. Not that's where it should be, but we were trying to make it flow better than what it would if you interspersed everything. So we have other apartment areas, as a gentleman earlier told us about. I'm not sure what Waterville said back in the 70s or 60s when that came in. Probably it was a pretty big deal back then. I think it is interesting that's on the other side of town from the new growth. And I don't know if people pay attention. My children took piano lessons in that apartment building, very rundown, 15 years ago. And so I knew someone living in there. And it's unfortunate, but that's what you don't want to see, I agree. So just a little bit of history on the zoning. It's a tough decision, and it's very tough when the farmers would like to sell. Part of annexing it in, you might ask why. Townships aren't as well equipped with the zoning and what we can do in a city. With the road coming in, it felt like a good idea to hope that we had a hand in how things would be built. We have overlay districts. This one falls in one. What that does is puts him through a couple times. He will know as an engineer on that side. It means we scrutinize a lot closer. We require a lot more, especially landscape, other things. And we do that for a reason. A lot of people that try to build out here say it's kind of tough. And there's a reason we try to do it. So, sorry for the history lesson, but I know a lot of people are new. And I don't want anybody to think it was taken lightly. We are seeing a growth spurt right now, and my advice 15 years into this is we have to pay close attention. We're already working with the fire department on servicing this area, not just our area, the whole area better. As long as I'm on council, that's our job, to make sure the services are there. So, went a little off task, but is there any other comments or questions for anybody? Because we have a public hearing right now still going on.
Our engineer had some
Comments?
contingencies and comments. I
Yeah,
wondered
we can
if
have
those
them
have all
speak.
been covered, or are we still waiting for some things to be resolved?
Tom would need to come on up. Sorry. A lot of coming up to the podium today for everybody. It's what the public hearing's for, that we do like your comments. That's how we hopefully make it the best it can be.
Tom Urista, Waterville engineer. We've been working with Cash Wagner for the last couple months on getting their plans up to the standards that we want, and at this point in time, we're almost there. They did another submittal last Friday, and we'll be going through that the rest of this week, and hopefully that should be the end of it, and from an engineering standpoint, then the site should be approved.
Tommy, could you elaborate? They're almost there. Can you elaborate what's?
The drainage, we haven't approved the drainage yet.
Okay.
I know that's one big item. There's a lighting plan that we just got submitted. We haven't gone through that yet. The site will be, exterior lighting will be throughout the site. So. There is a very elaborate landscaping plan. They meet all the requirements for number of trees, number of plants. It's well landscaped. The mayor mentioned the traffic study. The site is in 2 phases, and the first phase doesn't warrant a traffic study. But with the second phase, that'll produce enough traffic vehicles that a traffic study will be required. And that'll look primarily at if we need additional laneage on Prairie Boulevard at the drive.
And I would point out that the developer, to go forward with the plan, has to meet the requirements of the city and the engineer. And they are passed at a planning commission, subject to compliance with the engineer's recommendations and requirements.
Just to elaborate on Mr. Domby's last comment, in the Planning Commission's recommendation to council, they did include a number of contingencies, and one of those was contingent on the comments that Mr. Urista had made. So those items were actually part of the Planning Commission's conditional recommendation.
Just curious about the lighting maybe, Tom. Is it going to light up the night sky, or will it be more soft?
It'll be more intense where the buildings are, and as you go out towards the perimeter, the intensity will be less. There is a requirement for lighting at the perimeter of a property, that it be less.
So tonight, we alluded to this master plan, and I think for the benefit of our residents, it'd probably be good, that's of course public record, so they're always welcome to come up here and look at that master plan, so you can see the big picture, right? And when this master plan was put together, Jim, was public input welcomed on that? Was there?
Absolutely. It was about a one-year-long process with multiple public hearings, and in fact, the comprehensive land use plan is online.
On the website.
So it is good to get involved. It is mostly, what do we say, government occurs without you even knowing, you know, that's how it should happen, right, behind the scenes. But then when stuff starts, like Lori said, a lot of growth is occurring, that's why it's getting some attention. And it's change, and every time this change occurs, it's like, And like Lori said, you know, these farmers were selling, they have every right to sell their properties, but zoning does control development, that is crucial. You gotta always remember that. And so, it's a very tedious process. But I welcome you to come look at that master plan so you can get the big picture of what is coming eventually. I know Meyer keeps putting it off because the numbers aren't here yet to support another big store. Good, right? For those of us that like Waterville small. But who knows? If the numbers do produce, I know Meyer will go forward, but they may not if the numbers don't yield it out. So that's all I have.
All right, other comments? Public comments? Yes. I have to have you go up there.
Who defined the specs that you're following as far as lighting, as far as landscaping, as far as traffic count? Where do those specs usually come from?
A lot of the specs are in the Waterville Code.
And where did that come from? I mean, I know the code, but I mean, who put them in the code and when?
Oh, it goes years back. Every year there is some changes to them.
City Council is.
Is there an effort to actually keep them up to date?
Every year it's
Yes.
reviewed and there's changes that come to them. Drainage, I know there's been a lot of discussion on drainage. We follow Lucas County requirements on drainage. And they're the requirements that most of the other communities follow. It's no less, no different. The traffic.
That doesn't make me comfortable.
I have a
Yes.
question maybe for council. I don't know, Your Honor, if it would give us any more, nothing against Nathan, of course, but if we'd feel any better if a representative of the developer came in and talked to us a little bit, if that's worthwhile before we approve the plan.
More
And,
information is always welcome, yeah.
Would that allow whatever comments, Tom, you and the planning commission gave, would that give you time to address the handful of things that still have to be looked at, the lighting, the drainage, if we follow through with John's recommendation that we have the developer come to the council meeting?
There are 2 more hearings scheduled.
But I mean, yeah, sometime in the next,
Regular
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Not for this.
No, not on this.
Not for this particular part.
Zoning is zoning, that's, everything's pretty much outside of zoning.
Okay. So I mean, I would support your recommendation that if you want a developer to come, if we wanted to get these other things finalized, I'm not opposed to that. I don't put you behind a couple weeks, but
Typically, when there's a development, I normally work with the developer's consultant. I don't interact with the developer a whole lot.
okay.
It's engineer to engineer type of thing, or engineer to architect.
Well, then my second question was whether we should wait till Tom and Nathan work out the last of these details before we take any action.
All right, there's 2 questions on the table there.
Well, I guess a couple things. I guess for some people in the audience, I guess this is not our first time. We just didn't present a plan and hope it gets approved tonight. It has been in the making for several months. The Plan Commission has looked at it at least twice. You know, we've made some changes and tweaks, and at their recommendation or their request, we've submitted plans to Mr. Urista a couple times. He's made some changes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Plan Commission kind of looks at it from a big picture standpoint. Are we meeting the ordinance? You know, are we gonna have site lighting? Are we gonna have landscaping? Are we gonna meet everything in the ordinance? Where Mr. Urista also checks that, but, you know, we go into more of the construction details. You know, get beyond the concept phase and get into where we can actually take it out and construct the stuff from a more technical aspect. It's my understanding the submittal we gave last week, we've addressed all the issues that came up before. Granted, he hasn't had time to review it. So I think those are in. Of course, on behalf of the developer, I know he would want me to ask that we ask for approval tonight because he's itching to break ground. I think technically we're already past our due diligence timeline with the seller. So in effect, that agreement has expired, so we have to get that extended. I don't know when the next public meeting would be, but
August 27th.
It'll be August 27th, which is about a month.
is there anything in particular you're looking for that maybe I could answer? That you're looking for from the developer?
Any specifics?
Just, I think mostly the track record of it's comforting actually that they have 175 apparently successful complexes around the country. So we're probably mostly looking for how
Well,
it's going to be.
I guess a couple things. I'm gonna bring up a letter here. Like I said, I started working for these guys in 1998 as they came through Indiana. You know, I didn't come up here chasing work. They came through Indiana. I'm from southern Indiana. You know, they hired us, or the firm I used to work for. They actually, you know, we went down to Kentucky, did a few projects. They went farther south. We weren't licensed down there. We actually recommended another firm. They kind of got burnt. They came back and said, "Will you travel?" You know, they're good guys. They do what they say. They pay their bills. You know, we got to know them. They got to learn that we do what we say. We're loyal to them. We do good work. It's kind of one of those things that came together, and I've got to the point where I do this for them as part of our work, is speak on their behalf and do the plans as well as do all the upfront approvals. So I guess I'm giving you my word as well that they're good guys. They're going to do what we say on their plans. They do have a good track record. I've never seen any of their projects fail. I haven't done all 175, but I've probably done 50, quite a few. I've only seen them not develop once, and that was because a plant shut down at the last second during a economic downturn, but that was even before 2008. We're actually working on a project in Rossford, kind of on a similar time track. It's a little bit behind, but some issues came up similar to this, and we asked for a reference from Dundee. So if you will, kind of the village manager at Dundee wrote this letter. Said, I've recently learned of Rossford has been approached by the same developer we're dealing with in reference to a new complex. They go by Bell Estates up there, but Bell Estates has provided tremendous growth in our community as they have drawn young professionals from Ann Arbor and Toledo areas. We are finding these professionals prefer to live in a more affordable rural community setting while maintaining a short drive to Toledo, Detroit, Ann Arbor. Bell Estates assisted our community's rapid growth with the initial development of 144 units. Believe it or not, they kind of went back to the developer, asked them to do a second phase. The next phase was 132 units. During our relationship, Bell Estates has become heavily involved in our community, supporting many charitable and civic organizations. I have personally observed the meticulous management of the grounds and buildings, along with their willingness to engage in a positive discourse with village officials anytime the need arises. As the prior police chief, I can attest to the scarce amount of times the Dundee Police Department has responded to the apartment complex. In these few times the need arose, management has been more than willing to assist any way they could. We at the village are exceptionally thrilled to know Bell Estates in contemplating and adding another phase. In conclusion, I believe Rossford, and I think it would translate here, would be very pleased to welcome Bell Estates as a new member of the community.
Very nice.
Who was that written by?
David Uhl, UHL, the village manager.
Oh, like he's the administrator?
He's the administrator who was the
runs
prior,
the day-to-day?
Yeah, he was the prior police chief as well. And we have a similar letter from the fire department.
What happened with Rossford? It's developing
It's still
now?
ongoing. It's still I think we're on the August agenda.
Oh, okay. At the same time. Alrighty. Any other public comments? If not, close the public hearing. Thank you. All right, council, we had a suggestion over there. And we have it on the agenda for a motion. So, ask for some feedback.
John, do you want to delay it?
I'll defer to council. I mean, if there's a desire to hear the developer speak, that's fine. Don't delay it on my account if council wants to move forward.
Council, opinions?
Well, I know these guys have been through planning commission 3 or 4 meetings. I've sat through these meetings. Plan commission has went through this thoroughly. I mean, there are other recommendations from the city engineer that still have to be made, which they're in the process of finishing. I don't know, I don't see where delaying this 30 days is gonna tell us any more than we know today. I did look at the owner's webpage today, looked at some of their other sites. Obviously, you can make a webpage look nice and pretty, but they all look very nice developments to me. Look like well-constructed buildings. I mean, we've got a developer who's ready to get started. I don't see where delaying them another 30 days is the move that I would want to make.
I would, well, I would invite, when we have to take our vote, win, lose, or draw tonight, bring your developer back. We want to meet him. I mean, you're doing a great job, but next month, 6 months from now, we're nice people. We want to meet.
I think the other reason they don't like to come to these public meetings.
We're nice people, though.
I don't know that I like it.
I don't blame you. Other comments? All right. Need a motion for the residential overlay district zoning permit for the Waterville Place Apartments. One more comment from Mr. Bagdonis.
I don't want to jump to any conclusion, but I guess I would suggest that if there would be a motion, that council would want to incorporate all of the conditions that were contained within the planning commission recommendation.
Of course. In that motion.
Yes.
Yeah. or anything
And
else.
just to confirm, the plans have been reviewed, and all, you know, the plans comply with the green space requirements, it's gonna comply with drainage requirements, like all the requirements of the city zoning and development will be followed, and it's part of the master plan also.
They either have been followed or they will be with respect to the plans that have been submitted.
All right.
All right, I'll move to approve the residential overlay district zoning permit for Waterville Place Apartments.
The second.
Second.
All right, I have a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Bagdonis can go first.
Subject to the conditions contained in the planning commission recommendation. Did I hear that as part of the motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? I know we've had a good hearing about it. All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Moving on, we have Resolution 36-18, a resolution authorizing a Jobs and Commerce Economic Development Agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for a grant for the improvement of Dishart Drive. We discussed this briefly before, and Mr. Bagdonis has some new information on that with the resolution.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As you recall, we have worked with Thermec for an expansion of their facilities. That involves some job creation and retaining some jobs at their Dishart Drive location. And the repair of Dishart Drive was a top priority in our 2018 street valuation review. And so with the proposed project at Thermec, we contacted the Ohio Department of Transportation for financial assistance through their Jobs and Commerce Economic Development Program for the improvement of Dishart Drive. And they have agreed to provide a $30,000 grant towards that project. Total cost is estimated at $173,000. This resolution would authorize a grant agreement for that project. The actual work on Dishart Drive would take place next year.
Thank you. A couple questions. What's the approximate age of that Dishart Drive? Did that go in at the original time of Waterville, Monclova, when all of the places went back there? Is that newer? Mid-80s? Okay. And it hasn't had any work? No work has been done on that one? Okay. Are there other, besides Thermec, is there other potential? Is there other users? There was actually another building. And then there was a building that was gymnastics, and that is no longer being used, or is it?
And ground services is also on Dishart. Crumb Manufacturing has a driveway on
They have one driveway. That's why I'm trying to figure out how many actual, has the amount of traffic actually gone up quite a bit, or like is Thermec and the expansion, are there a lot more employees and?
I think there's peak times, you know, people are coming on shift work.
I think it's just a matter of the age of the road, and it has a higher percentage of truck traffic than most other streets.
Okay, those were a few of my questions. Makes sense. We need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any further discussion or questions, Mr. Tedrow?
Just a comment. This is one of those examples of, I call it a three-legged stool. You have Lucas County Planning, Mr. Bagdonis, the city administration, and the economic development under the leadership of Todd Dickerson coming together with the owner, have conversations, and obviously ODOT stepping in. So these things take time to develop and come together, but this is a nice success story, and I know Mr. Bagdonis and Lisa Aaron and Todd Dickerson and others worked on this, so thank you.
All right, any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next, we have Resolution 37-18, resolution authorizing municipal administrator to award a contract to Moorbark LLC, Wynn, Minnesota, for the purchase of a 2018 Moorbark Beaver M12RX chipper for the Public Works Department. Mr. Bagdonis, this was in the budget for this year, and
Yes, Public Works Department does not have a chipper. It was in this budget, and it has been in the 5-year capital plan for this year. The purchase is within the amount budgeted, and we would purchase this piece of equipment through the Ohio Cooperative Purchasing Program.
Thank you. We need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
All right, do we have any further questions or discussion? I just have a quick one we might have talked about during the budget. Mr. Blair's like, oh, geez. Is this one we used to borrow, the chipper, or how did we rent it? We've used a chipper before
We
now,
borrowed it.
before owning one.
We were able to borrow one at times from Lucas County.
From Lucas County?
It's a used one.
Okay.
And several times it broke down, they came back, they're repaired. You know, it's time, I think, to get it. I mean, we're doing a lot more forestry work now.
All right, I was gonna say, has it increased quite a bit?
Yeah, took quite a few trees down. And that saved us money too, for the contract.
Oh, doing our in-house? Yeah. Any other questions?
Nope.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 38-18 is a resolution designating the services the city of Waterville will provide to the territory proposed for annexation by the petition filed July 11th, 2018 with the Lucas County Board of Commissioners. And Mr. Bagdon, just want to give an update on this one?
Yes, thank you. There was an annexation petition filed. There are two property owners involved, Browning Masonic Community and the Miller family. This is about a half-mile west of Waterville-Monclova Road along Neapolis-Waterville. And if you look at the map that's attached to the resolution, the hatched area is the 43 acres involved. If you see kind of a strip that meanders through the property, and that is a 100-foot wide right-of-way that's owned by Browning Masonic Community. The land on both sides of that right-of-way strip are the Miller property. And directly to the south, or at the bottom of that drawing, that is connected to the main Browning property there. And so they're planning on this being, in the future, a major entrance into their property. So this is a 100% property owner petition, and one of the requirements is that the municipality proposed for the annexation must indicate the municipal services that we would provide to the property after it's annexed.
Which are the same services provided to anybody
Correct.
within the city. So.
Yes.
We need a motion and a second.
So moved?
Second.
Any questions on this or
Is
comments?
there a house, Jim, where it says Wells?
Yes. Yeah, apparently that property was split out years ago from the original farm property.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we have ordinance 16-18, ordinance amending ordinance number 14-18, the amended fiscal year 2018 annual appropriations ordinance and declaring an emergency. And this is our third amendment to our budget. And Mr. Bagdonis, do you have details on any specifics?
These next pieces of legislation are actually related to each other. They're all pretty much a part of the Michigan Avenue Waterline Replacement Project, but this one in particular pertains to money that we originally borrowed for the river crossing waterline project. And when we sold the bonds for that project, we spent them on the river crossing and also the transition waterline project involving mostly Waterville-Monclova Road. Now that those two projects are closed out, we did have an additional $85,000 from the proceeds of the bond available. So this would allocate that money in the Water Capital Fund and allow us to use it for construction of the Michigan Avenue Waterline Replacement Project, which actually came in a bit over the original estimate. So it will supplement the original budget for the Waterline project. And you might have read there's other projects in the areas. The contractors are very busy, and a lot of this work is coming in a bit over budget now. But this would allow that 85,000. It was originally intended for water line construction. We're still going to use it for water line construction.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions on any of the appropriations amendment? All right, seeing none, this is as an emergency, so the money can be utilized for the water line. I'll move that the rules be suspended to allow for the passage of ordinance number 16-18 as an emergency measure, and I would need a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Pedro?
Yes.
Mrs. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mayor Brody?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Rosa?
Yes.
Now I'll make a motion for the final passage of ordinance number 16-18, first and final reading as an emergency measure. We'll need a second.
So moved, or
Right.
second?
All right. Any questions before we pass the amendments? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Rosa?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mayor Brody?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mrs. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Pedro?
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we have Resolution 39-18, a resolution authorizing the transfer of cash funds from the Maumee River Water Transmission Main Bond Account, Bank 17, to the General Account, Bank 1. Mr. Bagdonis, I know you described
Yes.
this. Do you have anything else to add?
Well, the only thing I would say is, now that we've just amended the appropriations, this is somewhat of an accounting exercise. The bond proceeds were in one account that we referred to as a bank, and we would simply be transferring the money from Bank 17 to Bank 1, and Bank 17 will now have a zero balance because it
The
will all be in
project's
Bank
finished.
1.
And Bank 1 is the water capital. Oh,
Well, that's our main
water.
cash account.
For
We
water.
subdivide that further into the different funds.
All right. Thank you. We need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second?
Any further questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next is Resolution 40-18, a resolution declaring the official intent and reasonable expectation of the City of Waterville on behalf of the State of Ohio, the borrower, to reimburse its Water Capital Improvement Projects Fund for the 2018 Michigan Avenue Water Main Replacement Phase 2, Project CI34V, with the proceeds of tax-exempt debt of the State of Ohio. This refers to our Michigan Avenue, and do we have any new information to add on that?
Same project, and on that project, we were successful, and we got both a grant and a loan from the Ohio Public Works Commission. And whenever we get a loan, they require a resolution like this. It's kind of a formality because it is money that the state of Ohio had borrowed, and then they lend out to other communities. So this is a necessary step to finalize our agreement with the Public Works Commission and the loan. And this is a zero interest loan. It's $53,010.
Thank you. We need a motion and a second.
I'll move.
Second.
Any questions on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, next is Resolution 41-18. It's a resolution authorizing the municipal administrator to award a contract to Great Lakes Demolition Company for the Michigan Avenue Waterline Replacement Phase 2. Again, anything new on that?
Yes, thank you. Now that we have all our accounting in order for this project, we're ready to award a construction contract. We did get 5 bids. Great Lakes Demolition Company was the low bidder at $449,000. As I mentioned, that's above the estimate, which was $410,000, but it is within the range that we are allowed to award a contract. Mr. Urista has checked the bids and the bidder, and our recommendation is an award to Great Lakes Demolition Company.
Thank you. Any questions on this one?
Since Tommy's here, you mentioned you checked some references, those local projects that you checked for Great Lakes?
They have done limited work in this area water line and a sewer line, and the engineer that's overseeing the project gave him a pretty stellar recommendation.
Okay.
And then the other individual I talked to is he's a construction management type person, and he's familiar with the company on other projects, and
All right, thank you.
gave a good recommendation.
Thank you.
Because I had not worked with them before, and I didn't know that much about them. They started out as a demolition company, and they still do demolition, but now they're also doing underground work, water and sewer.
Okay, thank you.
I think, Tom, you also found that this company is pre-qualified with ODOT for underground work too.
Yeah, I said that. That's good.
That's helpful.
That's good.
Thank you. As far as the phase 2, is that the final portion of that whole Michigan Avenue? And it runs the length from down from where to where?
It's almost.
Almost the whole length.
This will go from along Michigan from Wilkshire to Farnsworth, on Farnsworth from Michigan to the trail, and on the trail from Farnsworth to North Street. The only gap that will be remaining is at the railroad track.
Oh,
And
we have to go through.
that was a complication that we attempted to deal with, but the railroad was not very cooperative, and given the current status of the right-of-way and the track, we thought it might be better to wait, and in the future, we might not have to worry about the railroad track, but there will be one gap right at the railroad that we'll have to,
That we would have to
deal
finish.
with in the
It would be the
future.
shortest.
Yeah, by far.
Right, okay.
Just
'Cause
a
it's
few
been a
hundred feet right at the
very
railroad.
big project on one of our
Yes.
major roads, so we just want to make sure we're getting it done so it can last for a very long time. Other questions? All right, we need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion there? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution 42-18 is a resolution authorizing the municipal administrator to enter into a contract with Proudfoot Associates, Inc. for the construction engineering services for the Michigan Avenue Water Line Replacement Phase 2 project. And that's pretty self-explanatory, but if you have anything to add.
This is what we commonly refer to as the inspection during the construction for the project that we just awarded.
Right, and everything's attached.
Yes.
Explain it. Yep. They'll be checking if it's done correctly. Any questions or comments before we do that? Need a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, is there any other information or unscheduled business council has? Tim Pedro.
My brain is now working. We have that third board member that I spoke about, Jackie Stotler, and don't tell her I forgot her last name. No, she's a great young lady, and sorry, Jackie, for not remembering your name before. That's all. Mayor? That's all.
Thank you. Any other information from council?
I noticed these building permits were put into the report. We get this on a quarterly basis, Jim, then?
Yes, that is correct.
So both commercial and residential?
Yes, this is exactly as we receive it from building inspection.
Okay.
Yep, from the county. Other questions?
Mayor, I have one last one. I'll get with you afterwards, but I have a gentleman in our community that's interested in joining the committee, and his interest is either zoning or plan commission, so I'll follow up with you later.
Yeah, we'll have him fill an application. We're always looking for people to join committees.
Engineer, young engineer, good.
Engineer, yes.
We have the volunteer applications online. I would recommend that
Okay.
you just fill it out because we never know when there might be a vacancy.
Right.
Good, I'll do that.
They
Thank
can
you.
either submit it back
Yep.
to the staff or bring it
Yep.
by.
Good.
Yep.
That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Next, we need a motion to go into executive session for consideration of a personnel issue or Ohio Revised Code 121.22G1, appointment and compensation of public employees or officials, and conference for law director, Ohio Revised Code 121.22G2, purchase or sale of property for public purposes.
So moved?
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mayor Brody?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Ms. Duncan?
Yes.
Pedro?
Yes.
Bruno? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. you. There'll be no further business conducted when we return from executive session.
Cheryl, can I get your last name?